And Shabbat Shalom, brethren. Here we go, live. What a blessing. Greet one another in the chat. We are in Isaiah, the Hebrew Gospel of Isaiah, the 6th chapter. And what a blessing to be here today. Of course, only 5 weeks till Sukkot. You can register. Go to torahtothetribes.com/connect. Scroll down a little bit and you can enroll, or I should say register, for the feasts on Eventbrite. And subscribe to the ministry channel while you're here, would you? It would really be a blessing. Give us some thumbs up. And please do consider donating to Torah to the Tribes. In the description below, you can text Torah to that number, or you can go to torahtothetribes.com/donate/. Thank you, all of you that do support this ministry. We are in chapter 60. We're going to get some light on the subject. Don't we need light in this dark, dark world? More and more and more. And here we have, arise and shine, for your light has come. Just those words themselves make me feel so much better. Hope, the blessed hope. Of course, we're in the last 6 chapters. Rapidly, will I be able to get through it before Sukkot? That is the million-dollar question. The prophet begins, of course, in this 60th chapter by calling Yah's people to action. And that is what this prophet is all about. He is a man of action. It is time, he's saying, people, rise up. Get out of your state of despair. Get out of your spiritual slumber and come to the light. The light is shining. Arise and shine, for your light has come. Now, shine is the Hebrew word ori, and it's reflecting the light that has come upon us. Of course, we're on this side of history, and we know what that light is inferring. Of course, we are to be ourselves a light unto the nations, a city on a hill. But that light, it's not our own, is it? It's not our own light. No, it's derived from something supernatural. It's derived from something greater than ourselves. Outside of ourselves, it is the kavod YHWH, the glory of YHWH, the divine presence that we know was manifest and is manifest in the blessed Son. Your light has come, says the prophet. And this, of course, this phrase shows us that we are now entering in to a new divine era of intervention and favor. Are you ready for that? Do you want YHWH to intervene into your life? Are you ready for his favor in your life? Well, that's what the prophet is speaking, and it's marked by the glory of YHWH, or kavod YHWH in the Hebrew, which has risen prophetically upon you, the last generation. If you can apprehend it. I mean, it's a light piercing the darkness of this present world. It's supernatural. And it's transformative. And it's the power of YHWH in our lives. It truly is. Arise and shine, for your light has come. And the Tifereth, the glory of YHWH, has risen upon you. Of course, if you break down those Hebrew letters, you can see the Hebrew word ori, which is made up of the Hebrew letters Aleph, Vav, and Resh. So if we break that down a little bit, light, okay, light, we see that the Aleph, of course, represents, like an ox, strength. The Vav is the hook or connector, like the tent peg we're all very familiar with. And the Resh is the head or the staff or the leader. So what does this word picture tell us? That strength and leadership comes only through having a divine connection, right? True strength, true leadership comes only through a divine connection, which is very, very good for us to know in this political season in which we do live. Because if there's no divine connection, can we really have good leaders? No, we simply can't. They're going to be tyrants, no matter what. So the strength and leadership that we are looking for as believers only comes through a divine connection. True enlightenment and guidance come from a relationship with the Most High. That's apparent. Look at verse 2. For see, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the nations. But Yahweh shall arise upon you, and his Tifereth glory shall be seen upon you. Verse 3, and the nations shall come to your light, and Melechim, kings, to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes all around and see. All they gather themselves together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from far, and your daughters shall be nursed at your side. Then you shall see and flow together. And your lev shall throb, your heart shall throb and be enlarged. Why? Because the abundance of the sea shall be turned to you, the wealth of the nations shall come to you. Quite a lot to unpack there in those first 5 verses. So what's happening here? Isaiah is introducing us to a powerful prophecy that speaks of Yahweh's kavod, his glory shining upon his people. He is going to bring a light from outside into this overwhelming dark society in which we now do live. He is going to do something miraculous, and you're going to see it. It's going to be transformative in nature, because he is going to transform the nations. Can you see the nations are at a buckling point more than they have been ever since the close of World War II? Because we are now coming to an end of a cycle. We are now going to enter into a new cycle, but the nations must buckle, and Yahweh has to come from the outside, shine his light into this darkness. You've got more oppression, you've got more degradation of society than you have ever had before, and we cannot bring the light ourselves. It's got to be something from the outside coming into the nations, and of course, us on the other side of history, we should be very familiar with this theme throughout the Brit Hadashah, commonly called the New Testament, and especially the apocalyptic literature of the book of Revelation in particular. So, what do we need to do? We would need to heed the prophet's words earlier from the 46th chapter and the 10th verse in particular, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. So those things that have not yet been done, they will be done, and you will know what's going to happen if you go back to the beginning. We've got to go back to the beginning. We need to go back to Bereshit, to Genesis, the beginning, because the end is declared from the beginning, Isaiah chapter 46, verse 10. So to unravel the Hebraic concept of the Messiah, what do we see? Look, arise and shine, for your light has come. Okay, we're talking about light that is coming in, an outside source coming into the nations when the nations are buckling and in degradation and severe darkness. Who can it be? Well, go back to the beginning and then look at those first chapters of Bereshit, Genesis, and you'll discover that the light is not the sun and the moon. Because the light, let there be light, was before the creation of the sun and the moon. So what's happening here? We need to unravel the concept of Mashiach, the true light. because Mashiach, Yahusha, is the primordial light that existed before the creation of the sun and the moon to truly gain the understanding of these verses. Does that make sense? You see, Yahusha is the divine light mentioned in Bereshit, Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. Let there be light, which existed before the physical creation of the sun and the moon. So this pre-creation light is the spiritual illumination that would later be revealed through the life of the blessed Son. Of course, this is what the book of John is all about. Because the Son fulfills the very words we're going to discover today, I'm excited to say, the very words of Isaiah by bringing the ultimate redemption and enlightenment into the last generation that is experiencing deep darkness. Morally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. I mean, it's insane. You've got to see it. You've got to see it. This is what is spoken about in Yochanan chapter 1. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That's the blessed hope, because it can be dark sometimes. It can be demonic. It can be oppressive. The occult is working overtime. And if there is any light, it's the Illuminati. It's a false light. It's all smoke and mirrors. So my goodness, do we need to be discerning? Yes, Revelation chapter 21, verse 23. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it. Why? For the kavod, this is the linkage to Isaiah 60, the kavod, the glory of Yahweh, gives it light, and its lamp is the Lamb. The Lamb that was slain before the foundations of the world is the primordial light of Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. Think about that. Didn't teach me that at Calvary Chapel. I mean, look at the exact fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy through Yahusha. It's awesome because he is both the light of the world and the ultimate revelation of Yahweh's kavod, glory. He is the very substance that Satan tried to steal in Ezekiel chapter 28. In Ezekiel chapter 28, Satan tries to steal Yahweh's kavod, his glory, his light, the work of the Son. He wanted to become the high priest. He was, in fact, the high priest, but then he decided that he wanted to go in and shine on his breastplate the light and glory. But that is the role of the blessed Son, not Satan. Do you see? This is amazing to me. I mean, the light of Yahweh's presence, that is what was removed from Adam da Chava, Adam and Eve. It was the light of Yahweh's presence that was removed from Adam and Eve. Not only does it transform his people, the blessed Son, the true light, but it attracts the nations, the Goyim, and their leaders, the Melachim, the kings. So Yahweh's salvation actually is intended to extend his glory beyond Israel geographically to all peoples who are willing and ready to repent and to receive. There's some hope in this dark and decadent world. Revelation chapter 21, verse 24, by its light will the nations walk, and the kings of the earth bring their glory into it. So Isaiah, are we doing any camera switching or are we good? It's working, okay. So Isaiah is actually now prophesying what? A great exodus from the nations. It's a homecoming, if you will. It's a grand restoration. It's almost like a wedding invitation. What a concept. Think we've heard that somewhere before. So Isaiah is foreseeing a wedding invitation, a grand exodus, or a great exodus, better, from the nations. The greatest gathering of sons and daughters from the nations, a return of the exiles, and a reunification of the whole house of Israel. That gives me hope. I mean, look at the word radiance. It's the Hebrew word tafhiche, and it speaks to an internal transformation that's brought about by the joy and the glory of Elohim's manifest presence in believers' lives. It's a manifest presence. And it can just hit you. And you just feel it. And in Matthew chapter 24, verse 31, this is where Yahusha speaks of sending out his malachim, his angels, with a loud trumpet call to, quote, gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. So you can see here, if you've got eyes to see, which of course I know you guys do, otherwise you wouldn't be tuned into this Torah channel, you see the theme of a divine gathering that carries over, of course, to Revelation chapter 7, verse 9. What happens there? The multitude from all tribes, all nations, all tongues, standing on a sea of glass. That's perfect reflection. That means the chaos has been stilled because the light has come in and we are now walking on water. That's the hope. Revelation 7:9, a great multitude from every nation, tribe, people, and tongue, standing before the throne of Yahweh on a sea of glass. Oh, the chaos has been stilled. The accuser's mouth has been silenced. Who's looking forward to that day? Oh, good grief, to have the accuser's mouth silenced. Look at verse 6. The multitude of camels shall cover your land. The dromedaries, I like that, don't you? That's a fine-looking dromedary you have, sir. The dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and incense, and they shall proclaim the Tehillah, the prayers of Yahweh. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered together to you. The rams of Nebaioth shall serve you. They shall come up with acceptance. Acceptance upon my altar. And I will bring splendor to the Bait, the house of my Tifereth glory. Verse 8. Who are these that fly as a cloud, as the doves to their windows? What's that talking about? Because the coastlands shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring your sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, to the name of Yahweh your Elohim, and to the Kadosh one of Israel, because he has lifted you up. And verse 10, and the sons of the foreigners shall build up your walls, and their melachim, kings, shall serve you. For in my wrath I smote you, but in my favor I have had rachamim, mercy upon you. So here we see a prophetic vision of the nations coming to Zion, coming to Zion. That's biblical Zion, not that state, not the imposter, but the true biblical Zion. And they are bringing gifts, they are bringing offerings, and they are finally come to their senses, and they are recognizing the kavod, the glory of Yahweh. See, it looks dark right now. And our salvation is not going to be politicians, because there has to be a divine connection for a leader to be a leader. Now, of course, this, if we look at it, sorry, my notes are a little rougher than usual this week. Where are we at? Oh, okay. We were in verse 10. Let me reread that from my own brain. And the sons of the foreigners shall build up their walls, your walls, and their melachim shall serve you. For in my wrath I smote you, but in my favor have I had rachamim on you. Thank you. That's where I was. So, what does this echo? This echoes the very gifts, if you think about it, that were brought by the Babylonian rabbinical, magical magi, a cult, in Matthew chapter 2, verse 11, right? They actually did, in fact, end up paying homage to the true light of Mashiach, which is a lot more than what we can say for Judaism today, that say that Mashiach is boiling in excrement, which is blasphemous. So Judaism is blasphemous in that. We know it. Now, the inclusion of Midian, Ephah, Sheba, Kedar, and Naboth is a bit weird. I'm like, what is that all about? I have to think that it represents the distant lands and tribes. Maybe they finally turn their head around and pull their head out of the jihad and recognize that Yahweh is the true Elohim, and they come to worship him instead of worshiping the black cube and the madman from Mecca. Well, that would be refreshing. I certainly know that would make the light pierce into this dark world if they stopped doing that. I mean, that would fulfill the prophetic vision of biblical Zion as a light to the nations, would it not? But so far, we have got a massive influx to the West of those that love to worship the black cube and the madman from Mecca. What are we going to do about that? There has to be a piercing light that comes into the darkness of which they bring. So the mention of foreigners building walls and serving as ministers, I think that could speak of the transformative power of, turning adversaries into allies, enemies into friends, which of course is what the prophets and Yahusha said to do. Because we're all supposed to be, as hard as it is sometimes when people do things that hurt you and is against you, we're supposed to be working in partnership with Yahweh and his redemptive work, being a light unto the nations, forgiving our enemies. So Isaiah foresees a great multitude of people returning to Zion, as if flying like clouds or doves. So the metaphor of flying like a cloud, that speaks to me to a divine movement. So there's going to be some kind of divine movement, almost akin to a spiritual ascent, wouldn't you say? So the doves to their windows, I think it symbolizes a return to safety, a return to purity, a return to final shalom or divine rest. Where would we find that? 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16. For the Master himself will descend from the Shamayim. So the light is going to come down and pierce into the darkness with a cry of command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the sound of a trumpet of Yah. And then when the dead in Mashiach will rise first, then we who are alive, there is no pre-tribulation rapture, it's very clear here, then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Master in the air, so we will always be with the Master. There isn't a secret rapture in between here. The dead rise first, and then we who remain come up. Okay, very clear. Pretty similar, I would say, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 to what? Isaiah's vision right here, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's suggesting a divine gathering of Yahweh's people that are being lifted up into the presence of Elohim like a cloud, doves to their windows, a place of safety, a place of purity, a final divine rest, doves to their windows, flying like a cloud. It's spiritual ascension. It's a regathering, or I should say a gathering of the righteous in the Messianic age. So now we're talking about the millennium. And I believe it symbolizes the resurrection and ultimate gathering of Yahweh's people. In fact, you could look at Ephesians chapter 2, if you wanted to, and verse 19, and it says thus, "So then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of Yah, built on the foundations of the Shlechim and the Nevim, the apostles and the prophets, Mashiach Yahusha himself being the light cornerstone," the very substance that holds it all together, because he is the primordial light that was always there. Isn't that what it says in Colossians? He was always there before the foundations of the world. So the building of walls by foreigners, this totally parallels the spiritual building of the called out assembly, uniting all believers in the light of the blessed Son. We're in verse 11 now. Can you keep up? We're looking good. "Therefore your gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day or night, that men may bring to you the wealth of the nations, and that their melachim may be brought, their kings may be brought, for the nation and the malchut, kingdom, that will not serve you shall perish. For the nation and the kingdom that will not serve you shall perish. Yes, those nations shall be utterly wasted." So here, a restored Zion is in view, whose gates are always open, and they're open to receive the abundance and the wealth of the nations. But there's also a stern warning here as well, is there not? That any nation that does not serve Zion will perish. Now, this isn't only speaking of the physical restoration of Jerusalem, but more importantly, it speaks to acceptance. Acceptance of Yahweh's sovereignty through Messiah. In Matthew chapter 21, verse 20, this was after Yahusha curses the barren fig tree. The disciples, they're in absolute amazement at how quickly this fig tree just withered. And this withering, brethren, it symbolized judgment upon those who appear fruitful but bear no real spiritual fruit. Those that appear fruitful, but they bear no real spiritual fruit. Watch out. So contextually, it reflects Israel's spiritual barrenness, man's spiritual barrenness, and the expectation of teshuvah, repentance. Expectation. That means readiness. So there needs to be a repentance and a readiness to embrace Messiah's light so that you don't wither in the dark. Because once that withering begins, it's pretty fast. It stunned the disciples. Then later in Matthew chapter 24, verse 32, Yahusha brings up the fig tree again. It's just 3 chapters later. And he's using it as a metaphor for recognizing the signs of his return. Now, I've spoken about 2030. I'm not date setting, but I'm saying, brethren, we've got to be alert. Things are moving fast, fast, fast. I never could click my fingers. I always wanted to be able to do that. But anyway, side point. Matthew 24:32. He's speaking about the fig tree again. He's using it as a metaphor, recognizing, hey, this is going to be the sign of my return. So just as one knows summer is near, when the fig tree's leaves come out, you can tie that in with Revelation, so should we be aware of the signs of the end times and the coming judgment. That's one of the main reasons, not only, of course, obedience brings blessing, why we keep the feasts of Yahweh. Because the full feasts are his timing for his second coming. So we need to be coming to the full feasts because that's the timing of his second coming. Of course, the spring feasts were the timing of his first coming. But now we've got to get really connected with the full feasts. Now, then later in Luke chapter 19, verse 4, YHWH tells a parable about a nobleman. Of course, the nobleman is representing himself. And he talks about this nobleman representing himself who goes out into a far country to receive a kingdom. But his subjects, however, they send a delegation after him saying, "We do not want this man to rule over us." And upon his return, what does YHWH say? He commands those who rejected his rule to be slain before him. You see, this is the severity of the light. And people don't want to talk about the severity of the light. Because when he returns for the full feasts, he's going to come with a glittering sword. His robe is going to be dipped in blood, and his horse is going to ride in the blood up to the bridle. He is going to come back not as a suffering servant, but as a conquering king. And those who reject his rule will be slain. Luke chapter 19, verse 27. So this parable totally mirrors Isaiah's prophecy regarding the fate of nations that don't serve biblical Zion. And you can see it in Zechariah, those that refuse to come up to the feasts, up to the Sukkot. What happens? They get the judgment. Turn off the water. No light on them. No agriculture, no irrigation. We're going to plunder the nations. This is what we're about to see, and I believe in our lifetime. So it all comes back to acceptance. Acceptance and recognition of Yahweh's sovereignty are critical to our physical and spiritual health. Not fighting. Acceptance. It's an open-gated Zion, and it's not only literal, but more importantly, it's a metaphor for spiritual openness to Yahweh's reign in our lives and decision-making. Are you open to Yahweh's reign in your life, Matthew? Are you open to Yahweh's reign in your decision-making, Matthew? Or are you just going to do it all by yourself? I've been guilty of going my own way, and it always turns out in sorrow. I'm speaking of myself here, have to be more open to Yahweh's sovereignty in our lives and decision-making. So the destruction of the nations that refuse to serve Yahweh speaks to the spiritual consequences of rejecting divine authority and natural law. And you're seeing that today. We have a culture that is fighting against just the most natural laws. I mean, it's just common sense and natural, right? How many chromosomes were you born with? Oh, well, I'm not. I mean, it's just common sense, man. I mean, once upon a time, if you were questioning the chromosomes and you wanted to get out the meat cleaver, we'd have a place we'd put you. It's called a mental asylum, you nutter. But today, oh no, that's liberty. Right? Wrong. That's the darkness. We've got to get light into this world. This is what we're talking about. There is a consequence of rejecting natural law, which totally aligns with YHWH's warning about the final judgment. Because the gates that are always open represents the reality where Yahweh's kingdom is open to all those who seek it. We have to love people and be compassionate. But if they are adamant on rejecting his natural law and adamant on rejecting divine authority, then you have to accept them. And they will receive the judgment, not from my hands, but from the one who made them. I believe I was made of primordial soup. Well, you'll figure it out soon enough, won't you? If that's your faith, well, we shall see. I think I'm on the right side of history, because that is what the prophets say. And the word of Yahweh is alive, and it is sharper than a two-edged sword. So the gates will always be open. But there is also going to be a continual influx into this kingdom, the millennial kingdom of wealth. And this shows us that by living in alignment with Yahweh's natural law and his commandments, we actually gain earthly treasures and spiritual blessings. Whereas those that don't serve Yahweh and choose to embrace an unnatural order, like what's described in Romans chapter 1, they are not only physically separated, but eventually eternally separated from those who align themselves with the divine light. Very serious. Look at verse 13. The Tifereth, the glory of Lebanon, shall come to you. The cypress etz tree, the pine etz tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my kadosh holy place. And I will remake the place of my feet with Tifereth, glory. The sons also of them that afflicted you shall come bowing to you, and they that despised you shall bow themselves down at the soles of your feet. And they shall call you the city of Yahweh, the Zion of the Kadosh One of Israel. Verse 15. Whereas you have been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through you, I will make you an eternal excellency, a simcha, a joy of many generations. You also shall suck the milk of the nations, and shall suck the breasts of melachim. Suck the breasts of kings? And you shall know that I, Yahweh, am your Savior and your Redeemer and the mighty one of Yaakov. So we have a divine reversal and the subjugation of the world's powers under Yahweh's sovereignty comes into view here. So the nations will actually provide sustenance, support, and riches to biblical Israel. Instead of pillaging us, instead of trading off of our estates since our birth and attaching to those demonic social security numbers, we'll actually receive sustenance directly from the nations and their leaders. But, and you've always got to watch out for the big buts, come out of her, my people. You got away with it for a generation since 1933. But that cycle is coming to a close. And if you still partake of that system in the next cycle, you're in the darkness. Because now's the time to come out of her, my people. That has been on operation since 1933. And you've got away with it. But that cycle is coming to an end. And if you still do the same things from that cycle in the next cycle, just saying. Just saying. You can't continue to do the same old things and expect something supernatural to happen in your life. You can't link yourself to slavery and expect to live free. Well, I'm spiritually free. Are you still physical? Because you've got to be in perfect harmony. You can't be what? A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Oh, I'm free spiritually. I know the Lord. As you're in the system. Now you're being double-minded. I think that's time for a psych evaluation myself. Right? We've got to be consistent throughout the whole period of our life. No double-mindedness. No double-mindedness whatsoever. This, to me, is hope and glory, because we are going to draw strength and resources from the heathen nations. We're going to plunder the nations, just as biblical Israel did when they were leaving Egypt. The unraveling of the British monarchy, brethren, is the sign. It is. Where's Kate? Where did she go? Look at Sausage Fingers. I'm not sucking any milk from his teats. My goodness gracious me. But I know a lot of people that would, that don't follow the natural law. They'd love to get up on his teat. They're all around here. We're in the Pacific Northwest. Old Sausage Fingers. I'm telling you. The unraveling of the British monarchy is the sign, brethren. In the millennium, our material and economic support will be taken from the nations, and we will be absolutely sustained by their resources. And it's about to happen in the next cycle. The spiritual restoration and divine favor that is bestowed upon us in the Messianic age. It is physical, it is spiritual, it is fiscal, it is military, but it is in Yahweh's hands, because we are warriors. There's only two types of people that exist in this world: warriors and victims, and nothing else exists in between. Except if you are a victim, then you will attract predators, and they're ghouls. So you've got to be a warrior. And a warrior attracts kings and queens, golden connections, royalty. David was a warrior. Hadassah was a warrior. They attract royalty, kings and queens. Victims, predators. You see it in the natural world, in the natural order of things, in the creation, in the animal kingdom, don't you? That poor, lame water buffalo, the victim, attracts a predator. But the king of the jungle, see what I'm saying? It's the natural law. Don't rebel against Yahweh's creation. Romans chapter 1. Revelation chapter 21, verse 24, it is written, "The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it." You see how John the Revelator is actually quoting the vision of Isaiah? Very vision, right here. "On no day will its gates ever be shut." This is Revelation chapter 21, verse 24 through 26. "For there will be no light there, because the glory and honor of the nations will be brought to it." You've got to see how Isaiah 60 and Revelation 21 are absolutely divinely connected. So this isn't some historical thing, because the end is going to be, is going to be declared from the beginning. And Isaiah is the bridge. Revelation chapter 21, verse 24. But what about Romans chapter 15, verse 12? He actually mentions the prophet by name. And again, Isaiah says, "The root of Jesse will spring up, one who will arise to rule over the nations. In him the nations will hope." That's the root, that's the light, the primordial light that Isaiah is talking about, Yahusha. I get too excitable. Verse 17. I'll have a sip. I'll calm down. It's not gin and tonic. I never did like gin and tonic. It's hydrating lemon water. For brass I will bring gold, verse 17. For iron I will bring silver. And for wood, brass, and for stones, iron. I will also make your officers shalom, and your leaders tzedakah. Hamas shall no longer be heard in your land. Well, that'd be nice, because there's been a hell of a lot of Hamas going on in our land. That is actually what it says in the text. Hamas shall no longer be heard in your land. Thank goodness for that. No ruin and destruction within your borders. Well, thank goodness for that. We're definitely going to have to get rid of sausage fingers then for that to happen. And Keir Starmer, the old communist we've got in England right now. Absolutely outrageous. Don't get me started. The sun, verse 19, shall no more be your light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light to you, but Yahweh shall be to you an everlasting light, and your Elohim your Tifereth glory. Your sun shall no more go down, neither shall your moon withdraw itself, for Yahweh shall be your everlasting light, and the days of your mourning shall be ended. Verse 21. Your people also shall be all Zadik. They're going to be all righteous. They shall inherit the land, Leolam Vayed, forever and ever. The branch, the netzer of my planting, the work of my hands, the branch of my planting is the primordial light, Mashiach, that I may be lifted up. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I will quicken them in their time. How? By the Ruach HaKodesh. We're going to enter into a new cycle. We're right there. This dark cycle started with a bankruptcy in 1933 and moving over into this fictitious system of slavery where everyone's a surety. But that system is buckling. The nations are buckling. And all of the nations are in the same system. All in a fictitious system. So this chapter gives me not only hope of eternal life, but also hope in the transformative power of Yahweh's glory to draw all people unto himself. If we don't control our minds, then someone else will. If we don't control our minds, then somebody else will. Through those devices, we have to look beyond this present darkness and anticipate the dawn of Yahweh's eternal kingdom that is coming upon this world, whether this world recognizes it or not. We don't care. His glory is coming, and it is going to shine forth, and all creation will be subject to his rule. Every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall confess. It's a massive challenge to my thought process. To rise above the daily grind, to rise above the darkness, to rise above the oppression, to rise in faith, to reflect light, to have a positive mental attitude, to get my fat backside down the gym, to just do something, man. Get up and get going and get out there and positive. My wife says this, and I think it's excellent. She says, you got to do a 20-20-20. And I'm, what's that? You get up in the morning, you got to do 20 minutes of spiritual, you got to do 20 minutes of something physical, and you got to do 20 minutes of something inspirational. And I'm like, I like it. I've got that 20-20-20. Because otherwise, man, sometimes you're just like, it's so dark out there, I think I'll stay home. We can't do that. We have got to participate in the coming kingdom. We need to be active and intentional in our participation in his mission of redemption and restoration of the nations. I'm speaking to myself to stop being get on with it, man. So Isaiah 60 is a powerful vision of the Messianic age, where the nations are invited to honor Yahweh and actually partake of the blessings. But it's also a stern warning against the rejection of his natural order and divine sovereignty. We need to have a readiness and an allegiance to Yahweh's kingdom now, today, if you hear his voice. So this chapter is a reminder to me, it's very sobering, of the importance of recognizing the signs of the times. Because I can get too entrenched in all the crazy negativity that's happening all around. But then I go back to his word. And just as Yahusha highlighted with the fig tree, it calls us to a spiritual vigilance, but also to have an open heart. Because just like the gates of Zion remain open to receive those who come, we also have to be open to the sinner who turns and repents. And that can be challenging because it's so dark. Choose this day who you will serve, because it's about the blessings of Yahweh's kingdom. Don't reject his divine authority. Don't reject his natural law, because you don't want to suffer the judgment. It's time for me, it's time for you to live in a way that reflects our acceptance of his rule, our acceptance of his natural law, because then we'll be bearing fruit in keeping with repentance. So, wake up, slumbering spirits. Remain spiritually alert. Be aligned with his will, because the gates of his kingdom, they are always open. But we have to seek him with a sincere and contrite heart. And in our world that resists all aspects of divine authority, that seemingly is embracing an unnatural and immoral laws, we're the people who are called to a light, reflecting the glory of the primordial light, Yahusha himself, and hopefully drawing others from the miry clay to come and to enter the eternal gates of his kingdom. That's what I've got for you. We're coming to the culmination of the message, Isaiah and the glory of his millennial kingdom. And I believe we're about to enter into a new turning. A new turning. Shabbat Shalom. Don't forget, give us some thumbs up. Register for the Feast of Tabernacles. And thank you, all of you, for watching. Shabbat Shalom.